Hello, everybody, and welcome to District 32's vlog, episode 3. Thank y'all for tuning in. Now, what we're going to do is elaborate and expand on episode 2. So in this one, what I want to showcase to you guys is me actually programming a feature that will take into account the character that you're playing with and actually change the pause background to a graphic that represents them, so that the player knows that when you're paused that you're actually that character. So bear in mind, this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy one. There were a couple of issues and things that I had ran into along the way, but you'll be able to see me go through every step of the process, actually debug and figure out exactly what's going on and how to fix this issue, just in case if you're one of the fellow users out there that are using Game Creator 2 for your game and doing a lot of your logic, that if you run into this problem or this issue, now there's a way to actually resolve it and have it fixed, and it works flawlessly. So stay tuned, I'll explain. So right now I'm going to add some conditions that'll go off of a local variable that'll check depending on the character that you have, if it's true or false. So remember, like I always said before, games are always events and triggers, and there's always a variable that things are stored in to be able to check and reference. So right now we're using a branch condition. We're going to compare a Boolean, which would be a local variable, and we're going to check that if it's true or if it's false. So right now we're on the venomous character. We want to say that if this is true, this character is venomous, then we want to run certain conditions. But like I said, as we're going through this process, we're going to run into a little bit of an issue, and I'll explain how I get around this issue. So right now we're selecting the BG, which is our background. We've already told it to change and override a sprite. We already have our pause logic already made, so all we're doing is just adding another condition for it to check for before that screen pops up. So I'm going to add conditions for each character that I have. So each character that you have, that'll be your main character, or however you break it down in your game, this is how you do the check for it. And guys, don't be afraid to fail. None of the stuff that I'm doing is scripted. I don't go in and I don't read it. I might pause the video for a second and then come back to it after I've thought about it, instead of having it running like forever and ever and ever. That's why these videos are a lot lengthy, because you actually see me run into the problem and then fix the problem and then explain why it even came up in the first place. So now I'm just looking to see if there's a way to nest another condition within this logic. to make it work. So I'm going to check for some conditions instead of running conditions, or I'm going to try to run some conditions instead of checking. So right now I picked the run conditions. This might not have been the best choice, but what I'm trying to do here is get this to actually work and see if it does work. And I click wait till finish. Now, sometimes that's not the best thing to do because it could leave you in an infinite loop or a hiccup. And with that being said, that can stop you from actually testing this feature out. So let's see what happens. So I've paused, and you've noticed that the background did not change. Even though the game is paused, it's still not exactly what I'm looking to do. So I'm just double checking the logic. It looks like it makes sense to me. I'm checking the pause logic. Everything is working except for that one thing. So now we're going to test out again. Okay, so we're still getting good pause logic, but not exactly what's needed to complete this.
Again, I done play my best friend. Been there since the beginning, pray that we never end. If you sorry for the things that you did in the past, why'd you do them all again, just to get a good laugh? Money ain't shit when your soul is on the line. You say answer when he calls.
So I'm just adding some logic for the rest of the characters here, just to see if that makes a difference. Could be a possibility, could be searching for other characters, other variables. So just crossing my T's, dotting my I's at this point. Okay, so after a couple minutes of trial and error, I decided to take a different approach to this. And this is to take advantage of game creators' character IDs, which are unique to each game object. So with that being said, I'm going to restructure and rebuild this logic to go and check basically for the character's ID and then change the information to see if that works. And there's a lot less steps that game creator will have to take with this approach.
get the plug in with the baby. And I ain't clipping the cut and don't really play the alley. Got your hating bitches scrolling my wall. I think they like how the money flick through my claws. I want that bankroll, I'm on a money mission. Bobby B, new edition, yeah, in these streets.
So I'm telling it to check if this is the player and if this player has a unique character ID. The character ID will be a string. And if that's true, then execute this other block of code and override the sprites on the pause menu. And let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, in these streets, like I'm a solid nigga, bitches in my league. I've been steady running it. I've been steady stacking, just trying to run it up. Try and count it until I burn it. Bitches ballin' more than Milwaukee Bucks. On the lane, playing the field, her show. I've been steady stacking, just trying to run it up. Try and count it until I burn it.
And as we're getting down to the final stretch, we're going to double check all of the logic, make sure that it makes sense and that it works. And let's see where we're at. Drake, I've been tipping all day since a young nigga raised the bar. I've been away, of course, I've been impatient more. I see the payments going to my wage for. I'm an amazing force. Green cake, half baked on a daily. So with that, the pause button didn't work. And that's because I was having it wait to run certain conditions. So now I'm just moving the logic around in the code and disable the wait till complete. Because waiting till it's complete, like I said, can throw it in an infinite loop. And right now I'm like, oh man, can't believe it. Did all of that and still the same results. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done, because it definitely can. Drive them in that nightly quarter. She keep talking about how she don't like her boyfriend. I don't doubt why. Talking about it'll cost high. Outright you like dirty laundry. Girl, you're washed up and your mouth dry. Telling me that it's about time I heard a melody that straight up outshine. Bitch, swear you ain't never lied. Now it's so I'm just checking to see if I have to override this sprite with something generic or different, but I don't think that that's the case. So still going through code, still trying to figure it out. You want to see if this variable helps change the scope of things? And it doesn't. Like I said, none of this stuff is scripted, and I wasn't doing any magic here to try and be like, I knew exactly it was gonna work from the moment I put everything in. That's not always the case. So I'm testing things to see if I should have had the background to be all white, like an albedo channel, to get it to work. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case either. And the way that the solution is, it's sometimes it can be a very simple solution, or it can be a very complex solution. But it's all in the placement of code, because it's reading from top to bottom. So being that it's reading from top to bottom, it would only make sense to have these conditions in a certain order in order for them to execute. And the code reads in milliseconds. But if something's out of order, it's just gonna mess up everything. So now we switch from using local variables in this case, because local variables seem to be the issue and not working. Now we switch to just comparing character IDs. Basically, once we put one piece of logic in there, we can just duplicate it, change the names, and set the comparison to be false.
Your boy sick, somebody better get my meds right. And I'm right up on your ass, you see them headlights. I know you heard what I said, right? And it's hard to get left soon as your bread's right. Now that I've got my bread right, y'all can start hating again.
And hopefully after this, and with that being said, that logic should work.
Let y'all know, it's my time. Y'all had y'all time. It's my time. ATKM. Heavy is the crown. Heavy is the crown.
So as it flows, if this character ID is venomous and it's not Grim or not Mercy, then execute her backgrounds for right. But if it's anybody else, it's the same flow, same order logic. So right now I'm just double checking everything and just going through it in my head just to make sure that that's the case before we test this. Here we go. Boom. Executed perfectly. Took some time, but that's what it is. It's all trial and error. It's more than one way to skin a cat. And if variables don't work, sometimes you can use the unique ID that each object has. So once I see that that's working, then I'm going to switch over to the other characters and see how that's responding. Which I know it should respond very well because the first one worked. And all we did was just copy the same values over 2 more times for 2 different characters. And there it is again. Boom. Working good. Nice. Looks good, looks good. And last but not least, we're gonna do Mercies and see how that looks. And there it is. So I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to episode 3. I really appreciate it. And like I said, we're just going to keep on making these until we're at the final product. So you'll be with me every step of the way. Thank you.